I really have to give Konami some kudos here because the last couple formats, as well as some really recent reprint sets, have been fantastic. Maybe even some of the best formats and sets that we've ever gotten. So we have Dual Devastator recently came out, tons of really good tools for aspiring competitive players, and I think a lot of people, myself included, say that is one of the best sets ever released for people that are just getting into competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! You have all sorts of fantastic cards in that one box, and all the cards are guaranteed. Fantastic job on that. Really good job, Konami. And then we have like the Megatins, which were awesome, not only for players looking to get cards at cheaper prices because they lowered the rarity of some previously high rarity cards, but also good for collectors because you want to have products here. And to me personally, I think products should have three different things. You should have valuable competitive cards, you should have less expensive competitive cards, and you also should have some cards that appeal to the more casual fan base because not everyone is a competitive player. And to me personally, it feels like both Dual Devastator and the Megatins really captured all three of those elements. And I'm not saying every single set needs all three of those to be completely equal. I think if you have just two of them, the most sets usually turn out to still be pretty good. But if you're missing two of them, so you only have one of them, or maybe you have none of them, the set doesn't look that good, especially as the months go on, because when a new set comes out, people are always really hyped about it and everything seems better than it actually is. But when you're like a month out, you have to look at it and say, okay, how many of these cards actually were competitively viable, how many of them were casually viable, and what are their prices looking like? And I feel like with Rising Rampage and Chaos Impact, man, these sets have just really missed the mark. And that's a real shame because overall, I mean, we've had so many good reprint sets and the last couple of formats have just been fantastic. So much fun to play in and people are going to tournaments way more than they ever have in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. And that's awesome. But like these core sets are so lackluster. They're not terrible. They are very underwhelming. And in today's video, I want to talk about why that is, at least in my opinion. Problem number one for me, as far as Chaos Impact and Rising Rampage go, is that there aren't really any good chase cards except the prismatic secret rares that you just don't pull very often. And I know that might sound weird because obviously the idea of chase cards that you don't pull them in every single box, but I think it's really crucial to have like half the secret rares be at least pretty competitively viable and worth like at least half the price of a box. That way, I mean, if you look at Rising Rampage here, the only way you can plus off of a box besides pulling a prismatic secret rare is pulling exactly Appaloosa, Bow of the Goddess. At least with some earlier sets that we had, even from the last couple sets besides Rising Rampage and Chaos Impact, you could pull like a combination of maybe two good secret rare cards that aren't by themselves worth more than a box, but together combined they actually are. And that's really important because when you're opening packs, you want to have some sort of goal. And while the prismatic secret rares are like a huge deal, I mean, they're cool, but they're so rare. They're way too rare to actually reliably depend on versus a lot of older sets where a lot of the secret rares were really competitively viable or at least valuable to some players. And it's not that Rising Rampage has no other good cards. Gizmek Orochi is a really solid secret rare played in a lot of Orcus decks right now, but it's only $20. Get Out is a card that was played to a lot of success at YCS London. In the first place deck profile, he played 2 copies in the side deck. Once again, even if you pulled a Gizmek and a Get Out in the same box, the second and third best secret rares, you're only looking at about, what, less than $30 for pulling both of those cards. So it really comes down to, do you pull a prismatic or do you pull an Appaloosa? And that's just not very fun from a pack opening perspective. But it's extremely difficult for ultra rares to be worth more than even $10, even if they're super good. So like the Dragoonity Knight card is an ultra rare out of Rising Rampage. This card is currently played in a variety of Dragon Link decks as well as the Thunder Dragon decks, and this is only $4. I mean, it's $4 for a very competitively viable card that's good in a bunch of decks out there, but it's like pulling this thing isn't going to get you that excited because it's barely worth the price of one pack, and you could have just bought the single and had a guaranteed pull. And I know that sounds weird, but it really is difficult when you have a bunch of super rares and ultra rares that just aren't very good. You have some good super rares, you have White Howling, you have some good commons, you have Barricade Borg Blocker, you have the Tenyi Spirit Vishuda. I guess some people think that Ran Ryu is a good card. I guess it has like one regional top or something like that, but in general, when you're looking at these packs, at least when I open Rising Rampage, it feels like, I don't know about you guys, but to me it feels like every single pack I just pulled Dream Mirror Super Rare after Dream Mirror Super Rare after like a Samoric Super Rare and then back to a Dream Mirror Super Rare. And I'm not saying Dream Mirrors are like the worst archetype ever released, and some of the cards are kind of cool, but when you open a box and like half your holographic pulls are just garbage Dream Mirror cards, it's like, okay, this wasn't very fun to me. There's too many Dream Mirror cards in those super rare slots, and I think a lot of people agree with me because even if you're a fan of the Dream Mirror cards, you're not going to buy a box to pull pull them. You're just going to buy the singles. The cards are so not valuable that it just makes sense to buy the singles, and I know in a lot of cases it always makes sense to buy the singles, but I think that it's really important at all levels of rarity in a set to have good cards for a variety of players. If you're not a Dream Mirror player and you open random 5 packs of something like Rise and Rampage or even Chaos Impact, you're probably not going to be very excited, because almost all the holos you pull, or the ones that you're most likely to pull, are going to be Dream Mirror cards that aren't very good, or some more cards that aren't very good. Obviously not a very fun pack opening experience. Keep in mind here that only 3 of the 4 prismatics that you can pull actually do end up really valuable. So we have Appaloosa, obviously super valuable, the main chase cards of the set, not only in the secret rare but also the prismatic secret rare. But if you guys scroll down here, do you know that Storm Dragon's Return, one of the possible prismatics, isn't even worth $60? I mean, can you imagine being like super disappointed when you open a box and you see that prismatic secret rare and you're so excited, and then you're like, wait a second, it's not the good prismatics, it's the really bad one. And I'm not saying that every single prismatic should be like a super competitively viable card, but Storm Dragon's Return in particular is just a really weird choice, and obviously on the secondary market here it's not worth that much, so a lot of players aren't going to be excited when they actually pull it, if they manage to do so. But if you thought Rising Rampage was bad, wait until you see Chaos Impact. So right now the only card out of all the secret rares, so it's 8 secret rares, the only competitively viable one is Star Liege. And this is pretty funny because, don't get me wrong, this card is very good, but look at its price. It's only $27. So you don't even have a secret rare that you can pull in Chaos Impact that'll make your money back on a box. To make your money back on a Chaos Impact box, you have to pull either like Star Liege and then the other, like the Unchained Searcher card, or you have to pull Prismatic Secret Rares, and that's really difficult. So Prismatic Secret Rares, if you don't know, you pull 1 out of every 24 boxes, so they're extremely rare, which means on average in Chaos Impact you don't even have like 1 secret rare chase card to pull. You only can pull those prismatics, and that's not really fun for players. And I mean, yeah, we can look at the ultra rares. You have IP, that's a really good card, $26 for an ultra rare, obviously extremely good here, and that's kind of what I'm going off of, where like, how good does an ultra rare have to be more than $10? Well, it has to be so good that it's played in like every single extra deck or every single deck. We saw it with this card, we saw it with Dingirsu, but other than those 2 cards, not really very often. Even the really good ultra rares just don't end up being more than $10 because they're so easy to pull. But with the IP Masquerena, I mean, it's really good and it's kind of hard to pull. I think it's one of the shorter printed ultra rares, so it's going to be up there in value. But still, once again, even if you pull the Star Liege, even if you pull the IP, you just barely almost meet the price of the box. You could have just bought both those cards individually and you would have been a lot better off. But not to mention, in most boxes, you're not going to pull both those cards. You might not even pull one of those cards, and you'll be really disappointed. And yeah, there's Unchained Abomination, actually the most successful Unchained card right now. I'm not trying to say that Unchained is like the worst deck ever, but it's really risky to put 4 secret rares all in the same pack that are all of the same archetype, because that means that that pack is going to live or die based on how good that archetype is. In the case of the Unchained card, at the moment they have completely flopped. I don't think they have any regional tops. Unchained Abomination is pretty decent, but it's an ultra rare. It's only $4, so you're not going to be super excited when you pull it, because it's barely, actually this one is worth less than the price of a pack. So when you pull this card, you're going to be like, oh, well, that's kind of cool, but wait a second, I could have just bought this and not risk the chance of not pulling this card. And that's really disappointing, because there are some good cards in the set. I mean, you have Striker Dragon, pretty cool card, once again only $10, which is I mean, that's like right at the $10 mark. I think in a couple weeks or a couple months this card won't be this price. Rockets really haven't done that much, even with all the crazy support they've recently gotten in the past couple sets and structure deck, but it is a cool card that a lot of people are excited about. Then you have like Salamangreat Pyro Phoenix, $15. We've seen a bunch of Salamangreat decks topping at YCS London. Not a single one played even 1 copy of this card, let alone 2 copies of this card. The prismatic version looks very cool, and it could see play in the future, but right now it's just not a staple, even in the deck that's supposed to be playing it. So when you're going through these secret rares in Chaos Impact, you have 4 Unchained cards. So you have Abomination's Prison, you have 2 Link monsters, then you have the level 8 monster. All of them are like super cheap and are not very competitively viable, at least not right now. So the chances are when you buy a box, on average, you're going to pull at least one of those Unchained secret rares, and they're not very exciting. Sure, you have the Star Liege here, but once again, barely even, I mean, it's less than $30, so not very competitive. And the Abomination's Prison, which is the Unchained Searcher card, is cool, but I think that you'll be hard-pressed to find someone that will actually buy it for $30 a copy, considering the deck isn't that good. Even if you pull the Prison and the Star Liege and the IP, you would just barely make a profit of like $20. Doesn't sound very good to most players, and I think that that's where this really comes comes from. That is like the absolute best pulls besides prismatics, and it's not even that good. And I think that really goes to show how lackluster the set is. But in most cases, you will not be pulling those two specific secret rares as well as that specific ultra rare. You'll pull like Marincess Blue Tang. Cool card, not very valuable. You'll pull a Pyro Phoenix. Cool card, not very valuable. That's the story with like almost all these cards. Or God forbid you pull Firewall Dragon Dark Fluid, the cover card of the set, and now you're like really out here because you have like a secret rare that's worth less than the price of a pack. And I think that this is what I'm saying here. You need to have chase cards. You need to have at least one card that's worth more than the price of a box, and hopefully several cards that are worth like half the price of a box. This is just not what it looks like when you have a good set of secret rares, and we can look at some other sets. But first, I want to look at Rising Rampage real quick so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about here. So when we go to Rising Rampage, you have the Appaloosa, pretty good card. You have the Marincess, cool card for Marincess stacks, but not very competitively viable and also not very expensive. You have the Gizmek, you have the Get Out, you have Fortunately Every, completely terrible card. You have the Marincess Marble Rock, once again a cool card but not like super valuable, not super exciting to pull here, especially if a secret rare is worth less than the price of one pack. I mean, that means that you should just buy the single. It makes the most sense. And then you have the worst two secret rares in the set, the Witchcrafter and Capshell, and it's just like the Witchcrafter one is pretty terrible. I'm pretty sure it's not even that good in a Witchcrafter deck, which already isn't that good. And then Capshell, why in the world is this card a secret rare in a core set? It makes no sense to me, even from a casual standpoint. Who would ever be excited to pull Capshell as a secret rare? I just can't imagine it. The card is worth, what is it, 50 cents. It's worth 50 cents and it's a secret rare in a core set. I just can't believe this card like wasn't a rare. I mean, then it would have been kind of a cool card to talk about. Maybe if it was like a super rare even, that would have been kind of cool, I guess. But even in its role as like a casual card, there is a much better option out there. That like Ipera card or whatever that Mech Knight guy topped with, that card is so much better in every single way. So even in like a role that Capshell is supposed to fill, there's another card that does its job way better, and yet this is a secret rare in a core set. But wait a minute, you say, I have too high of standards about what I think secret rares should be. And you might be saying, well, how many competitively viable as well as cool cards can actually be secret rares? Cards that people want to pull, even if they're not that valuable, at least they're pretty good at a tournament or in a casual setting. Well, I'm going to show you two recent sets. So the first one is Soul Fusion. Not too long ago, 7 out of 8 secret rares are actually tournament topping cards. We have Chaos Legionnaire, we have Orchestrated Return, we have Danger Snake, we have Thunder Dragon Colossus, we have Trap Trick, we have Titan, we have Thunderbird. The only non-competitively viable card, the only card that didn't see tournament success out of all 8 of those secret rares is the one of Condemned Witch. So 7 of these cards all saw success. That is not that abnormal. I mean, plenty of sets have a ton of good secret rares. Another recent set, we have Dark Neostorm, the last set of last season. How many of these cards do you think is competitively viable? Well, it turns out 7 of them again. So we have Signet Mining, we have Avermax, we have No Material, we have Cherubini, we have Brotar, Ib, we have Ghost Sister, and Spooky Dogwood. Not the craziest card, but a card that did see some play in a couple tournament topping deck lists. The only like truly unplayable card here is Nightmare Incarnation Idly, which is obviously way better than the Witchcrafter, way better than the Capshell. It's a card that isn't that good anymore now that Nightmare Mermaid is banned, but at least was worth discussing a few times when that card was still legal. So when you compare these two sets to the most recent two sets, you really start to realize here it's not that much to ask of Konami to make secret rares actually pretty decent, or at least competitively viable, even if they're not that valuable. There are so many awesome cards here that at least when the set first came out used to be a lot more expensive, so you had a much better chance of making your money back on a box. Keep in mind here that these two sets did not have prismatic secret rares, so it was all down to these secret rares to actually sort of carrying the weight of these sets' value. What I'm trying to say here, or what I'm trying to ask, is please Konami, stop putting cards like Capshell in these secret rare slots. Stop making every single super rare a Dream Mirror card. Just make these sets a little bit more valuable. We want new cards. I mean, if you look at the meta right now, yes, the format is really good. Yes, decks have changed, but I mean, Orcus came out like 6 to 8 months ago with all the new support. You have Salamangreats that have been out for a while now. You have Sky Strikers, which have been out for a while now. Thunder Dragons that have been out for a while now. And while it is cool to have these decks that have been out for a while still being valuable, still being competitive to this day, I like that a lot. I want some new strategies that are cool, that people are interested in playing, that are worth picking up here. And I think the Unchained cards were supposed to be that, but they pretty much completely flopped at this point. We just need some new themes. We need some new archetypes, some new cool generic cards like Phantasme, like Extravagance. We need some chase cards in these sets that aren't these prismatic secret rares that are artificially hard to pull. Obviously, with all these cards are artificially hard to pull as far as secret rares go, but I mean, those cards wouldn't be that valuable if they were just normal secret rares in this set. We've already learned that with a lot of them already, and it's like, I just want regular secret rares, I just want regular ultra rares that are exciting to pull from a pack opening perspective, from a player perspective. When you enter a regional qualifier, it shouldn't be a situation where you open your 5 packs and you pull 5 Dream Mirror super rares and you're like, well, what a waste of time this was, I might as well have just thrown these in the trash. I don't want that to happen. I want some cool, interesting, unique super rares, ultra rares, whatever. I just want some cool cards that aren't Dream Mirrors and aren't prismatic secret rares. It seems like these sets have really high highs and really low lows. You know, most of the set is just at the lower end, really crappy cards, and then at the really high end, you have like, oh, you can pull that prismatic secret rare, and how exciting will that be? And I think the final nail in the coffin here is really just looking at how bad these special editions for these packs are, because those ones don't have a chance to pull a prismatic secret rare, and as a result, they're basically worthless. I mean, like less than the price of a box, only because there's no chance to pull those really coveted, like high rarity prismatic cards. And I think when you take those prismatics out of the sets and you make those special editions, I think people really start to realize just how lackluster these sets are. Konami has done a fantastic job with the reprint sets. They've done a fantastic job with the recent, like last 4 ban lists have been really, really solid, but as far as the core sets go, I'm just not very impressed, and I want to be excited for a core set, and it's looking like the next set is going to have some cool cards, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I'm just trying to say this, I'm trying to get a discussion going, a dialogue going. What do you think Konami could do to make these recent couple sets a little bit better, or at least what could they do in the future, sort of taking the knowledge from these recent sets, because these ones, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinion, just weren't very exciting. Anyway though, I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Goodbye.